we are back for episode 2.3. Our episode begins with Craster improbably catching Jon, kicking his ass, and then kicking out the Night's Watch. Nothing like this happens in the book. However, Jon does have a face-to-face with Mormont about what the Night's Watch knows about the child sacrifices. Mormont and all of the Rangers, including Benjen, knew children were being sacrificed. Now what's interesting is the Night's Watch kind of has a history of sacrificing to the others. Its 13th Lord Commander became the Night's King and was sacrificing to them. Additionally, there's a weird weirwood mouth gate in the Knight's Fort. When one goes through it, it makes it look like a weirwood is eating someone, but the person just ends up on the other side of the wall. Being consumed by a god rings of sacrifice. Additionally, one of the Night's Watch's forts is called Snowgate, which could be a bastard gate, a place to get rid of unwanted children. What exactly is going on is a bit of a mystery, but it seems as though the others need babies for reproduction, and Craster is giving really inbred ones to them, and the higher up in the Night's Watch are totally cool with it. Now next we're treated to this extra scene where Sam gives Gilly a thimble. Again, we don't really know what Sam was doing in A Clash of Kings. He doesn't get his own point of view until the third book, A Storm of Swords. Meanwhile at Winterfell, Bran is warging Summer and exploring the castle. Now this conversation between Bran and Luwin is mostly from the last book. Luwin shows Bran his Valyrian link and says only one maester in 100 has one. Now the big question is, how many maesters are there? If every great house has one, there looks to be about 200 in the field. And then there's the ones at the Citadel itself. But even if we went with a really high number like 1,000 maesters, that's still only 10 maesters with a Valyrian link. That's a very low number of people that have studied magic. Now, as I said, the Bran story has largely deviated from the book. In the book, the Harvest Festival has begun. Many of the lords and ladies that didn't accompany Robb have arrived in Winterfell for the party. They've also arrived with their problems. House Hornwood has lost its lord and lost its heir down with Robb and Roose. Lady Hornwood has arrived, and everybody and their brother wants to marry her. The circling sharks have created conflict in the north. Eventually, Ramsay Snow kidnaps Lady Hornwood, marries her, and steals her land. And this begins a bit of northern infighting. Meanwhile, two houses that don't exactly like each other, the Manderleys and the Umbers, are ordered to build ships together. This Manderley-Umber cooperation disappears for a couple books, and then reappears in the 5th book. This makes many fans wonder, where is this Northern Navy? Meanwhile, down in the Stormlands, Catelyn has arrived to treat with Renly, and she finds Renly's army having a tourney. Now in the book, this tourney takes place at Bitterbridge in the Reach. Bitterbridge is a bit out of the way for Renly, and it shows how Reach-oriented and Tyrell-oriented the army is. Now Margaery is now married to Renly. Now if we go back in time one book, we find that Renly and Loras wanted to marry Margaery to Robert. And if we go forward in time, Margaery marries Joffrey and Tommen. The Tyrells are probably our least understood major player. But whatever they're planning, Margaery being queen is essential to it. But there's clearly much, much more to it. Now the big question is, why didn't the Tyrells ever court Stannis like they did with both Robert and Renly? Now one could point out that the Siege of Storm's End made Stannis hate the Tyrells. But that wouldn't really explain Tyrell hatred for Stannis. It may be that Stannis was already married, and married to a Florent, who the Tyrells don't have a great relationship with. Now Brienne is introduced, kicks Loras' ass, and wants to be a part of Renly's Kingsguard. Now show Brienne is much, much better looking than book Brienne. Book Brienne, like book Tyrion, is straight up ugly. She has a huge mouth, crooked teeth, and a nose that's been broken several times. Now Brienne asks to be part of Renly's Kingsguard. In the book, this is called the Rainbow Guard. Rainbow being a shout out to the Faith of the Seven. However, the show decided to not have a gay king with a Rainbow Guard. So next, Catelyn has an aside with Renly. In the book, this conversation is interesting because Renly starts lying to her about his relationship with Eddard. He claims that he and Eddard didn't see eye to eye because Eddard had sworn to protect Robert's children. In fact, they didn't see eye to eye because Ned was concerned with succession. Ned would and did see Stannis as king. Now in the show, Renly's crown is all antlers, but in the book, it's actually a stag's head surrounded by roses. Renly is fully stating that this is a Baratheon Tyrell regime. Meanwhile in the Iron Isles, Theon is yelling at his sister. Now in the book, Asha Yara is very much a showman. She twists other people's sayings for comic effect. In the book, these scenes take place among all of Balon's bannermen. She likes to embarrass Theon publicly, and in fact, she needs to embarrass him publicly. In truth, the Iron Isles is a pretty sexist place, and none of them would ever accept her as queen. She's trying to trash Theon because she wants the Iron Isles. Now Balon comes in and gives everyone the plan. Now the show makes it look like Asha has the biggest role. In the book, this is not the case. The most important part of Balon's plan is Victarion taking the Neck. Moat Cailin is essentially impossible to take from the south. Robb's army and any other army are trapped south of the Neck. Now in the show, Theon is a lot more vocal about his turmoil than he is in the book. Here he yells at his dad for warding him to Ned Stark. Of course, Balon didn't have any choice, so what are you gonna do? Now in our next scene, Shae is getting a little stir-crazy and wants a job outside of her room. In the book, this plays out a bit differently. Varys has arranged for Shae to stay at Shataya's brothel. Tyrion is with her there when Varys arrives. In one of the biggest tells that Shae is actually Varys' agent, she recognizes Varys in disguise. Varys tells Tyrion that the city is no longer safe because Stannis' army is marching and they're gonna rape and pillage the city. And so Varys arranges for Shae to be the handmaiden for House Stokeworth. Stokeworth lands are near King's Landing but outside of the city. However, the Stokeworths reside mostly in the city. And next, because Cersei and Sansa haven't had very much screen time lately, we get this extra dinner scene between them. And we get this odd extra scene of Shae acting as Sansa's handmaiden. Now here we get this fun set of scenes where Tyrion tells Pycelle, Varys, and Littlefinger 3 different stories. He wants to determine who is spying for his sister. Tyrion is obsessed with what Cersei is up to during a Clash of Kings, when he should be more concerned with what Varys and Littlefinger are doing. His obsession is largely fueled by Varys. Anyway, he tells Pycelle that he's sending Myrcella to Dorne to be betrothed to Trystane. In the show, the second story is that he wants Myrcella to marry Theon. In the book, the second story is Tommen being warded in Dorne. And he tells Littlefinger that he wants Myrcella sent to the Vale to be betrothed to Sweet Robin. Now, there are only 3 moments in the entire story that Littlefinger loses his cool. The first is when he first meets Sansa, goes nuts about her hair, and then storms off. The second and the third are both involved with this deal. For brokering a marriage between Sweet Robin and Myrcella, Littlefinger would receive Harrenhal. A look of hunger flashes on Littlefinger's face when he's offered this. Now we're not sure why, but Harrenhal seems very important to Littlefinger's plans. He first arranged for his crony Janis Slynt to receive it. And now he is pretty stoked about getting it. He claims that Harrenhal is just for him to marry Lysa, but there seems to be more to it. He could probably marry Lysa at any time, with or without Harrenhal. Now next we're treated to these extra scenes between Renly and Loras and Renly and Margaery. Now we don't have any points of views from these characters, so these events are largely created by the show. Margaery's character comes off much bolder. She is very clearly not a virgin or daunted by sex. In the book, Margaery's sexual history is a bit of a mystery. We aren't actually sure if Margaery has had sex before, and this is a big deal as she eventually goes on trial for adultery. Margaery's hymen is broken, but we're not sure if that's just from horseback riding. Now in our next scene, Tyrion is dealing with the wrath of Cersei. Cersei is furious because the Dornish hate the Lannisters, and actually Cersei is completely right. Sending Myrcella to Dorne was a stupid, stupid idea. Tyrion was expecting a Dornish army and got not a single soldier. What's weird about our story is our characters are sometimes geniuses and sometimes idiots. It all depends on the book. Cersei has pretty good judgment in A Clash of Kings, but then horrible judgment in A Feast for Crows. Tyrion has really bad judgment in A Clash of Kings, and then really good judgment in A Dance with Dragons. At one point in A Clash of Kings, Cersei tells Tyrion to stop trusting Varys and to stop thinking with his penis. Meanwhile on the Iron Isles, Theon is thinking about warning Robb of the impending attack. This inner turmoil has largely been added by the show. Theon is Ironborn through and through. There was no transformation or anything like that in the book. When Balon wanted to attack the north, it was accepted by Theon almost immediately. So in our next scene, Littlefinger is pissed that Myrcella is not going to the Vale. And of course, he's really angry that he's not getting Harrenhal. This is the third and final time that Littlefinger is off his game. With the discovery that Myrcella is going to Dorne, the mole is revealed. It was Pycelle. He is Cersei's creature. Now it's at this point of the book that we get some grand confessions out of Pycelle. Cersei didn't poison Jon Arryn, and neither did Pycelle. However, Pycelle did let him die. And he let him die because Jon Arryn knew about the incest, which means Pycelle knew about the incest. So Pycelle is a better spy than we first thought. However, he thinks Sir Hugh killed Jon Arryn, which means he's not that good. Pycelle also confesses to betraying King Aerys. It was he who convinced Aerys to let in Tywin Lannister's forces during Robert's rebellion. Now, even though Pycelle supposedly did this all for House Lannister, Tyrion feels the need to punish Pycelle and throws him in the Black Cells. And so you can see at this moment, Varys has all of the power in our story. Command of the City Watch has switched from a Littlefinger crony to a Varys crony. Slynt is at the Wall, Pycelle is in the Black Cells, and Tyrion is being manipulated by Varys and Shae. Don't worry, Littlefinger will have his revenge. Now next we have this extra scene in which Yoren explains how he ended up in the Night's Watch. He killed a dude who killed his brother, and he had a grudge prayer to remind him to do it. Now in the book, Arya's grudge prayer doesn't have any genesis, it just sort of happens. Now next, the Arya story starts getting really complicated. Now in the book, Tywin has sent out 3 different groups to rape and pillage the Riverlands. There's the evil Sir Amory Lorch, there's the eviler Brave Companions, and there's the evilest Mountain's Men. Sir Amory likes to burn villages down, the Brave Companions like to rape and kill, and the Mountain's Men torture people. Now the show conflates these groups, but there is a big difference between them. So in the book, Yoren's crew is chilling at the south end of the God's Eye Lake. They're hanging in an abandoned village, and the reason this village is abandoned is because of these 3 foraging parties. We're not sure where the villagers went, but they took their boats, so maybe the Isle of Faces? Amory Lorch finds them and tries to burn them out of their holdfast. And this is where we get the whole fire scene. Now weirdly in the show, Sir Amory is looking for Gendry, which doesn't really make any sense. Someone sent a letter to Tywin to order his foraging parties to keep an eye out for Gendry? This nonsense is not in the book. And Yoren does not die this glorious death. He dies a much more interesting one. You see, Jaqen, Roarg, and Biter nearly burn to death, but Arya provides them an axe to escape. Arya and company flee from the village, but then return the next day to see what went down. She finds Yoren dead from an axe blow to the back of his head. It looks as if either Jaqen, Roarg, or Biter killed Yoren. Weirdly, Arya's mercy is kind of to blame. Now in the book, somehow, Jaqen, Roarg, and Biter assimilate into Sir Amory's crew. We're not sure what happened, but somehow these 3 guys are Sir Amory's men like it's no big thing. Let's keep in mind that Roarg is a man without a nose, and Biter is a feral man with pointed teeth. For some reason, after slaughtering all of the other people in the Night's Watch, these guys are spared and given jobs. Anyway, Arya and her crew, including crippled Lommy, traveled for a few more days before being captured by the Mountain's Men. It's at this point that one of the Mountain's Men, Raff the Sweetling, kills Lommy Greenhands. And that's all for episode 2.3. See you in episode 2.4.